I wanted to talk today about 5 things that I'm really, really bad at. And I wanted to make this video because I want people to know that even somebody as perfect as me, I mean, look at me. I have stuff, I can't even talk, and I have stuff that I'm bad at. But seriously, I wanted to talk today about just a few things that I'm bad at to keep myself accountable, and maybe it'll sort of help you think, maybe I'm bad at certain things, or maybe I'm bad at these same things as well, and maybe we can come up with some solutions to fix them. So let's begin. The first one is something that I've talked about a lot on this channel, and it's something I've mentioned in passing, but never really have dove into very much, and it's my weight. When I was younger, I was a much larger person. I'm 5'9" 3/4", so basically 6 foot. And I weighed like 220 pounds when I was a senior in high school, roughly. I never weighed myself, but I kind of knew exactly what I was at based on other times I weighed myself in the future. And then when I was a sophomore in college a few years later, I ended up losing about 40 pounds and I got down to 180. And then I proceeded to lose an additional about 15 to 165. And then I met my now wife and I've put on a few pounds since then. I'm hover around between, in the last few years, around 180 to 190. I sort of bounce between those two numbers. It's too heavy, both of those, 180 to 190, too heavy. 170 and under for me is a good weight. That's what I'm comfortable with. But it's something I've always struggled with. I think that one of the reasons I've always struggled with it is the fact that I really enjoy food, and I've never, other than for 1 year when I was in college, I've never consistently gone to the gym. So that's something I've definitely been trying to implement as I get older. I'm only 25 now, but I'm gonna be having kids in the next 5 years probably, and I want my kids to see me as somebody that they can look up to on that side of things, because I know that it's something that I struggle with, and I'm afraid that my children are going to struggle with it as well. So I just want to make sure that they can look at me as somebody that they're like, oh, okay, dad, you know, he works out, he does this, he does that. I want to be like him as well. So the second thing I would say I'm bad at is keeping a commitment. I think that I don't hold myself accountable enough. I'm late to a lot of things, and I'm just sort of really nonchalant about it. Also, with this YouTube channel, I've done it a few times. I said I'm going to start a podcast, no podcast. Or I had a podcast and I filmed 3 episodes, and that was the end of it. I said I was going to work on my Patreon. I've never worked on my Patreon, and it's still sitting in limbo. I've done a lot of things that I said I was going to do, but I have not been able to do it yet. And I think that I'm not sure why that happens, because I know that it's not with everything. I know that typically what happens with me is if I say I'm going to do something, I do it. It just doesn't happen for a year. Give me a year and everything will happen that I say I'm going to do. It just normally takes a long time. So I got to work on that in the future. Definitely. I'm not very good with that. The next thing that I'm not very good at is keeping my cool when I get stressed out. I hardly ever get stressed out. I'm a pretty low-key, calm dude. I hardly ever yell. I'm never really angry. I'm normally pretty happy or pretty like middle, I guess. But when I get angry, I feel like I snap too much. I mean, I don't like do anything crazy, but I do get upset and I don't want to talk to anybody, and I get mad and I yell and I scream and I just get angry. And I think that for me in the future, I would love to, and I do work on it actively. These aren't just things where it's like, man, I want to and I'm never going to do it. I know that I'm bad at these things and I do try to work on them. And I wanted to be pretty open about this and not really edit this video a ton, because I just wanted you to know that like everybody struggles. I talk a lot about, oh my God, minimalism changed my life and I'm doing so well with money, and look at me, I'm 25 and I'm better than you. And I really don't want to come off like that, but if I do come off like that, this video hopefully will show that I'm truly not like that in real life, in YouTube life maybe. But I definitely do get angry sometimes and I just shut down, and that's something I need to work on. When I get upset, I need to try and figure out more positive solutions. I cool off really quickly. I'll normally yell, scream, and shout walk upstairs and just pout for 5 minutes or 2 minutes, and then I walk back downstairs and apologize, or whatever the situation may be. I normally cool off really quickly, but I shouldn't have to cool off at all. I shouldn't just get that mad, I think. And obviously people are always going to have faults. I'm never going to do everything perfect, but I do like to say what I do wrong, because I think that's the only step you can take towards fixing it. If you don't admit that there's something wrong, then you can't fix it. The next thing that I think I do really poorly is not having enough self-confidence, I would say. I'm normally a pretty confident guy in things I've accomplished in the past, but I think that we would agree, maybe not in this video, but in previous videos, I'm a relatively strong video editor, maybe not nearly as strong as somebody that's way better, but I think like with the ability I have with a camera and the ability I have with video editing software, I should probably be able to get paid for that. I think most people would agree. I think I agree. And in my life, with the skills I have, I've only been paid like $150 for my video work, the ability I have with video. And I think that a lot of that has come down to confidence in myself, and comes down to confidence in either what I'm making, or, as silly as it sounds, how I look, and thinking like, oh, I don't look like a videographer, you know, I'm out of shape, I'm overweight, this, and this. And those things are like crippling. And it's so frustrating because I never thought I was like the guy that wouldn't take the leap, because I'm like, oh yeah, I don't care. You want to do this? We can do that. But then you don't take the leap, and then you're like, oh, maybe I'm not that guy. Maybe sometimes I'm not, you know, the guy, the courageous, super confident guy. And I think that that's something that, for me, I think that a lot of that's tied into my weight, because that's been such a large part of my life and like who I am as a person. And maybe I've overly emphasized my weight for too long, where it's played too big of an impact on me and my life. But it's something that it will just always be a big part of my life, unless I get it consistently under control, where I'm not just bouncing up and down 10 pounds every 3 months. So I think for me, the confidence aspect is definitely something that I think a lot of people struggle with. And I think a lot of people struggle with all these things, which is why I wanted to talk about them, because I think it's just a good thing to talk about and be a little bit vulnerable sometimes. That way I think that way you'll be able to learn the most if you expose yourself to maybe not pain, but like criticism. So that's why I'm sharing these. So hopefully if you're nervous about talking about something with somebody you know, or you're worried about something that, like, I don't know, everyone goes through it, and you look at YouTubers sometime, you think that they just have their life on lockdown, but then in reality, it's like they struggle with a lot of things that they don't ever talk about. And then I would say the final thing that I would love to maybe improve on is my work ethic. I think I have a strong work ethic, and when I sit down to do something, I do it, but I procrastinate a lot, and I allow myself to get caught up in, I don't know, it's not necessarily bad things, but like caught up playing video games for an hour or two too long, or I procrastinate playing my phone when my wife asks me to take the dogs out, and then I don't take the dogs out. So I think that all these things I know people struggle with, but it's good to talk about them, and a lot of them sort of are somewhat similar and all sort of relate. And I know I'll never be perfect at everything, but I think that it's a good thing to do, to talk about things that you suck at, because that way you can actually open yourself up to saying, okay, I suck at this, how can I fix it? If you never admit the cut's there, you'll never know how to heal it. But if you admit the cut's there, it's like the human body feels pain, not because like they want you to hurt, but so you know you're in pain. If you were unable to feel pain and you got cut on the arm, you would sit there, and if you couldn't, like you got cut in the back and you couldn't see it, it would just bleed and bleed and bleed, and then you'd probably die because you'd never feel the pain of getting this massive cut in the back. And I think that is an interesting analogy that I just sort of came up with for life in general and trying to improve yourself. And it's like the cut on the back needs to be felt. You need to feel the pain of knowing you made a mistake and admitting you made a mistake instead of just sort of like pushing it to the side, like admitting to yourself that I'm overweight. That was a big thing for me, and it sucked because I knew it. I always knew it, but I never said anything. I just pretended like I didn't. I said things like, oh, my BMI is really high, but so is LeBron James. I don't look anything like LeBron James. Like, I am not an athlete. I played golf in college. I was not a basketball player. I was not a football player. I look nothing like an athlete. I am just a regular dude. But you used excuses like that. I never really admitted that there was a cut on my back. So once I realized that there was a cut on my back in the form of my weight and everything, then you can start to heal it. You can get some help from somebody, or you could do it yourself. I think that most motivation should come internally, but hopefully some videos, maybe like this one, could help you realize that, okay, maybe I'm not perfect at everything and I can fix a few things just to make myself a little bit better. So what I would ask you to do is, I would implore you to look in at yourself and admit your faults to yourself. You can maybe tell other people if you want, but really nothing is going to happen until you admit that there's something that needs to be changed. And if there is something that needs to be changed, you can write it down in the comments if you want to, if that helps you admit it, or just admit it to yourself and be like, listen, I need to change. If you want to lose weight, what I did was I bought a scale and I stepped on it for the first time, and I looked at my BMI and it was massively, I think it was obese. I wasn't sure if it was in the farthest right range, which I think is like over obese or whatever, or bigger. I don't know what it's called. What's that called? Morbidly obese, but I was in the obese section, and that was a real wake-up call for me. And I think that wake-up calls are good. It's best to touch the stove to know it's hot most of the time, as opposed to just being told it's hot your whole life. So I would suggest, and I'd implore you to implement these types of techniques in your life, and just don't be afraid to admit that you're bad at something, because everybody sucks at something. Even me. I'm perfect. I mean, I'm pretty much perfect. There's that one time a few years ago I did that one thing that was imperfect. All right, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks again for watching. Peace out. Bye.